Hello everybody, and welcome to the third episode in our Blender Cool Stuff series. Today, as you probably guessed from the title, we're going to be looking at animating and compositing a dragon. And this is going to be really big and complex, so I'm going to cover this over two tutorials. The first of which today is going to be about getting your dragon model ready for animation and animating it correctly. And the second tutorial is going to be about lighting, rendering and compositing fire and different effects onto the dragon. So let's get started. I'm in a new file in Blender and I'm just going to go AA and delete all of the objects in my scene. Now I'm not actually going to make the dragon myself. First of all because I'm not very good at 3D modelling, and second of all because it would take a very long time and I wouldn't be able to texture it and things. So we're actually going to use one downloaded online. This is from the free 3dmodels.com. It's a really good website if you want to get a good model quickly for some animation, and you can download them all as different files. We're going to use the OBJ version of this file, and this is a dragon created by the user Dragon 3D generator. So thanks a lot for that, and if you can, check out the free 3D models. I'm going to include this dragon as part of the project file for you to use. So let's get into Blender and start importing our dragon. Now to import the dragon we need to import it as an OBJ object, so go to import and wavefront OBJ. If you don't have this, go to your user preferences, search for the OBJ, and there should be the option import export OBJ, and just tick that and shut it down. You should have the option to import an OBJ. I'm just going to navigate to where I saved my dragon. You see we've got this dragon OBJ. There's also a textures folder with this dragon, which is really handy. And import OBJ. And hooray, we've got a dragon. But there's a few things wrong with it. First of all, it's huge. And second of all, it's facing the wrong way. So let's fix the rotation first, going RX 90. Actually, needs to be the other way. Let's just fix that. And hit S to scale it down to a more reasonable dragon size. Now with this particular model, the thing is that it's in two parts, so we're going to have to join these parts together. What I will do is go select them both and go Control J to join them into one big object, and then along this seam here we're going to have two vertices, one for each side. So what I'm going to do is go AA to select all, W, then remove doubles. What basically that does is it takes vertices that are in the same position and merges them. So you see there, if you didn't saw at the top, it said merge 229 vertices. Let me just do that again. Remove double C, remove 229, which is a lot. And it now means these ones in the middle are merged into one vertex, so I can move them around better. Which is going to be handy when we get to animating right now. And because this is one object, I'll just set it to smooth as I said I would. Because this is one object, we're going to need to animate a different way. So first thing to get this right is we need to recalculate our normals, because you can see we've got these funny black lines going all over our model. So if you go just Control A and then Control N, and you see make normals consistent, and that sort of reset our model's normals to the way they should be. And next thing we need to do is build what's called a rig, and that basically is like a skeleton for the object. If you've worked in other 3D applications, that's what it's called. And it's basically you create a little bone structure which controls certain parts of the model. So I'm going to get started in creating my rig and go Shift A, Armature, and Single Bone, and that's created our armature, which looks something like this. I'm going to do my rigging in wireframe node, and I'm just going to build a rig around my object. Going to orthographic view by hitting number pad 5, and let's just move this into what we would have as a rig. I'm going to position this bone right on the tail, and there's a reason for this in a minute. It's because if I go into edit mode by hitting tab and extrude it, you see the bones going to the tail point the correct way for rotation, and these correct the way for the neck. So let me just extrude a few bones for the tail. I'm going to redo that. And one for the final tail tip, and then let's extrude some bones forward. You can just extrude like any other object by hitting the E key. When I get to the head, I'm going to extrude one bone for the top of the head, I'm going to go Shift D, duplicate that, rotate it to make the jawbone. If I go back into solid view, and what I'm going to do is go to the armature options and select X-ray, which means I can see it through the object. You can see we've kind of created a bone structure, but it's not quite center, so I'm going to center it up, and then we can work on extruding some more bones. So I'm going to get back to you once I've finished rigging this model, and then we can work on assigning bones. Okay, so I've built the rig for my dragon, and the next thing I need to do is get organized with my rig. So I'm just going to go back into edit mode and start by selecting this bone I've got for the top of the head. Now if I go to the bone tab, what I can do is give that bone a name. So I can do head, so I know what it is. And I'm going to call this jaw, then neck underscore 1. And there's a few set rules to creating the names for your objects. Say for example, when we get to the wing, if we do wing and then we need to do wing R, so wing, let's do wing base, and then you do dot R, and then we do wing middle. I seem to have forgotten how to type. There we go, dot R, and because this is the right side of the body, so that means if we then go into Blender and say we want to swap the left and right, we can just go select all, and we can go auto name or flip names, and literally just have that automatically generated because we've set these up with these names. So I'm just going to quickly go through the wing. So I could do wing base dot L, wing middle, and it's really important to name your bones, otherwise, as you've seen before, we've just got bone 18, and you can name these as you go, but I've just, in this example, because it's only a small rig and it's not very complex, we can just name them afterwards. So I'm going to do upper leg 1 dot L, because there's a back leg and a front leg. And you see I've just literally, to create these legs, I've literally put a bone in the place where I think things should move. So say in the knee joint there's a bone there, and just across the whole model I've built it like that. I mean, if you're watching this and you're a professional rigger or whatever, I'm not a very good rigger, but this is a way that works for me, and it will work for you. It's just you won't have as much control as if you did this with IK solvers and lots of other things that I'll probably get into if I do rigging in a basics tutorial. I'm just going to pause the video here and finish off naming my bones. Okay, so I've just finished naming all my bones, so I know what they all are. If you notice, if you're in edit mode and you've got a bone selected, down at the bottom you see armature, upper leg, and it'll give you the name of the bone you're working on. So we've created our structure, there we go, we're finished. Not quite. Now we've created the structure, we need to actually assign it to the dragon. So the first part of this is going to the modifier stack and adding a armature modifier. And under the object we should have only one option, which is our armature object. And we see we've got these two options, vertex groups and bone envelopes. Vertex groups is basically where you assign vertices to each bone, which is the method we're going to be doing today. And bone envelopes is where each bone has its own little sort of sphere of influence on the model. But as I say, we're going to be doing vertex groups, so I'm just going to uncheck bone envelopes. Now, we need to assign our vertex groups, and the first thing we need to do to that is go into the armature object and go into pose mode down here. So now we can actually see what these armatures look like and how they're going to be posed on the object. So you see how I can move the tail and stuff, but it doesn't affect the object yet. And on the main object, go into weight paint, and this is where we can actually paint on the influence of bones. So I'm just going to go into the armature and hide it once I've selected it. And then go into side view, and we see we've got this weight paint window up on the left. You see I've got these brushes. I'm going to select the add brush and just start painting on. I need to adjust my strength. There we go. And when it's red, that means that bone is influenced fully on that mesh. You see if I switch the armature back on in my hierarchy, you see I've got this tail bone selected, and I can select different bones, and I can just paint on what I want it to influence. So if I just make sure it covers the whole of this tail, and then I can move on to the next bone. I do like to switch it off while I'm actually painting it on, just switching it back on and off for reference, just so I know where it is. But I find if you leave it on all the time, you can't quite see what you're doing. It gets in the way a bit. And this doesn't have to be quite exact. You can overlap a few things. It doesn't matter too much. The tweaking will really come later, as you'll see. Let me just paint on a few, and then I'll show you the effect this has had on our model. Remember to paint both sides of the model if you're doing a thing like a tail or a leg or something that has two sides to it. Most parts do, so remember to do both sides, otherwise only half of it will get moved. Yeah. Let me just finish off this last bit of the tail, and then we can tweak this section, and then I'll move on, finish the model. You guys can finish your model to whatever you want, whatever standard you want. And there we go, that's close enough for what our purposes are. Let me just go into the subtract brush. So I painted a bit on the leg by mistake. Turn the strength up, otherwise we'll be here all day. There we go. So let's say I've finished the whole body. I'm happy with that. Go back into object mode, and if I go into pose mode, I can now test this. So if we go RZ, you see that this bone is now moving the tail. But you see we've got a problem here, because this bone has left some vertices behind, and that can be fixed. If we go back into weight paint, you see our pose is kept the same. So if I just go back into the add brush, I can literally just paint those vertices on, and go back into object mode, and now we've got our object ready for posing. So I'm going to go on and finish this model, and I'll get back to you once I've done that. Okay, so I've actually cheated a bit, and I've nicked a model that I've already posed. So now I can move this around in all the parts that I want, because I've done this tutorial before. So you see if I move my head, the head goes up and down. I've got the lower jaw all sorted. I'm just going to close the jaw by going into pose mode and going RY, just because I don't want my dragon toes' mouth open all the time. And the next thing we need to do is just make sure the armature moves with the object. You see it if in our hierarchy the armature is separate from the object. Let me just rename this to dragon rather than mesh 001, and this to skeleton. And I'm just going to go with the armature and shift click the dragon, go Control P, set parent to object, and now you see the armature is a member of the dragon. Make sure you select the armature first, then the dragon, otherwise the parenting will go the other way, which is what we don't want. Now if I move the dragon, the bones come with it. Okay, so I think we're now ready to begin animating. Now I want my dragon to start in a sort of position as if it's sort of just waking up. So I'm going to start by positioning my wings. Let me just move it so you can see. I'm going to start by positioning this wing, because I'm going to position it like a bird, and birds sort of sleep with their heads under their wings. So let's bring that wing up, and I'm just doing RZ. Have I missed off? I've lost my keys. Let me just switch on my keys so you can see what I'm doing. There we go. I'm just going to use the rotation functions just to get that head down, and rotation is really most of what you're going to use to animate using armatures. Stick the head under, and I really want the head to be a lot lower than that. And then we want the wing to sort of be curling over. Oops. Now it might take a while just to get your pose right, but once you've got it right, it's important because it will add to the real belief. It'll make the audience really believe the story you're telling or the character you've created, which is what it's all about. If you're doing animation, you want the audience to be caught up in your story. So I've actually messed this up a bit. This is not as good as the first time I'd done this. There we go. So I've got the sort of head under the wing, and this other wing I want to be curled up. Sort of like this. And once you've got a pose you're happy with, I mean, I'm just going to curl the tail round a bit just to make it a bit more believable. It's literally as easy as animating anything else. I'm just going to select all of the bones, go I, insert keyframe, location, rotation. See there's a little keyframe icon in the bottom, and we just want our dragon to wake up. So let's set us 250. It's going to take about 4 seconds for the dragon to wake up. So let's just reset some of these bones. If you go Alt R, you can reset. So I can actually select all, go Alt R to reset it back to its original position and pose from there, which is what I think I'll do in this case. Just takes a little while for the mesh to update. Gonna make sure the head's nice and low, sort of looking up. Sort of proper. You got to think about animals and how they act. If you're posing, think about people, how they act if you're posing a person. And this is just going to be a really short animation for now. I'm just going to do the very basics. So this is the kind of thing I'm going for. I'm actually going to curl this wing slightly because I don't want it to be symmetrical. That's a bad thing to have symmetry in your work, because then people instantly don't believe that it's a real creature. I'm just going to swing the tail the other way slightly, and let's just add a new keyframe. So there we go, we've got our dragon, and you can see as soon as I start moving the playhead, it animates between those two poses we've done. And then I want the dragon to sort of curl up, because this is going to shoot some fire, and that's going to be the main topic of our compositing tutorial, is getting that fire to look good. So I'm going to have the wings sort of curl up as if it's ready to shoot some fire, the neck to sort of curl up, now your animation might be completely different to what I'm doing. I'm just doing this so it links in with the next tutorial. So I've got the sort of the neck screwed up like it's ready to pounce or something. And let me just position a few of these wings back. Just want to rotate that neck a bit more. Just trying to get this to look good. I mean, I might completely fail in that. I can just switch off the armature to see how it actually looks. Yeah, maybe I've rotated that neck slightly too far. And then just let's rotate this tail back. So if just by rotating the tail every time I'm doing a pose, sort of creating a swinging tail at the same time. So you can see I've got that sort of wagging tail like a real animal, and sort of scrunches up its neck. And in the space of about 20 frames I want it to really lean forward. And if you've not noticed, a few animals, when they are trying to intimidate something, they spread themselves out and make themselves as big as possible. So I'm just going to make the mouth open wide to shoot some flame, and I'm just going to rotate these wings so they're really high in the air, like it's trying to intimidate an animal or something. Just by rotating the wing slightly, this tip, I can rotate it on the y-axis to bring it round, and the same with this, so you can actually see the wing a bit. I'm just going to make the tail straight for this, like it's concentrating or whatever. Like it's actually using a lot of power to shoot out some fire. It's the little details that make the difference. And if I then insert a keyframe, you can see how that reacts. And if I go back to here, I can hit the copy, and at frame 250 I'm going to paste it, insert a keyframe, and I'm also going to copy the pose from when he's active, paste that. So now you see we've got this sort of animation. If I play it through, shoot some fire. I just want to modify this pose slightly so it doesn't look exactly the same. Just going to bring it down slightly. Just little changes so it's not exactly the same pose for a while. Just going to change the wings as well. I'm actually going to bring them all slightly down. There we go. So I'm pretty happy with that animation. I mean, you can spend a lot more time getting yours to look far better than what I've done. But this is what I want it to happen, so we can have a look at compositing next time. And I think that's pretty much it for our animation tutorial. I mean, you can spend as much time as you like getting yours right. This took me, I think, probably about half an hour to get the actual rig okay. Yeah, I mean, you can spend up to an hour getting a rig perfect. But for our purposes, this is fine, and in the next tutorial we're going to look at actually texturing and lighting this along with the actual compositing of our fire and other compositing things inside Blender and outside Blender. So, until then, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.